keep this for me, and I'll take it back from you after a while. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this body and told us that you're going to live in this world for a certain amount of time, which you don't know how long, and Allah will take this body back. And Allah has given us this body pure. He has given it to us pure and wonderful and great health. It is up to us to take care of it throughout this life. Think of it as that way. What you put inside the body, how you treat it, how you move it around, it is all up to us, right? So it is an amana, and grateful are those indeed who take care of this body, who look after it. And one of the things is, once again, what we eat, to balance what we eat, right? Not to eat too many things at once, too much meat, too much sugars, all of those things. Inshallah, the speakers will talk about those. The Prophet ﷺ gave us our entire bodies. He gave us health guidance for our entire bodies. When it came to eating, when it came to drinking. Even the Prophet ﷺ said that when you drink, كَانَ يَتَنَفَّسُ. He used to take intervals, sips when he would drink water. He said, don't drink water like a camel and all in one gulp. And the way that we sit to eat, he said to share your food. Not to just have one person eating, although it's become a custom here, but to share your food as you're eating. I remember this is one of the things I miss in our madrasa, in our school. We used to eat, we had 150 students at one time eating on long, the floor mats, the dastakhan. And I remember 3 or 4 of us would be eating in one plate. Sometimes 5 students eating in one plate. There's barakah in that. It's wonderful. And how we remember that sometimes the food wasn't even sufficient, but because of the barakah and the blessing that we would get eating together, it was more than enough for us. So sharing your food. And then how much we eat, right? Overeating is one of the greatest causes of obesity, which today we're living in an era where obesity, he came and he said, what do you guys eat? There's not a single person that has come to visit or became sick. What do you guys eat? He said the Prophet ﷺ guided us to eat enough to keep our back straight. And if we have to, if we're adamant, if we really insist on eating, then 1/3 food, 1/3 drink, and 1/3 for air. He said because of that, nobody gets sick around here. SubhanAllah. What a simple thing, but how many people are actually doing that? One person said, I didn't understand this hadith until my blender broke. My blender mixer in the kitchen, it broke. Then I understood this hadith, that I used to fill it up to the top, and I used to try to blend and mix, and it broke. And that's the same thing as our bodies and our stomachs. That if you fill it up to the top, you're asking for trouble. And the Prophet ﷺ said the worst thing a person can fill is his belly. The worst container that the human being can fill is the belly. So, covering, again, the mixture, the blender example, 3/4 of it or even half, then you can see how well it works and how well it does its jobs. So, these are just some of the things. Then the niyyah for having good health, because not everyone is unhealthy. There are those who try to keep very fit, that are always in the gym, that are just always, mashallah, tip-top, looking at themselves. The niyyah has to be the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we're trying to get fit, the niyyah has to be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for the image, not for the looks, not for the fame. Because truly, if you cannot bow before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that health is no good. You can lift 300 pounds, but you cannot lift the blanket at Fajr, it's too heavy. That health, that good health is useless. There's no need for that health if it is not coupled with the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the ideal situation is, if you have good health and you are obedient and you are able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is wonderful. So, all of the guidelines for our entire body is given to us by the Prophet ﷺ and in our deen. And the last thing I wanted to mention, again, we want to be about 15-20 minutes, keep it short, but keep it sweet, right? Is for our entire body and especially for our brain, for our mind. The Prophet ﷺ said there's one thing that is a nutrition for the soul, for the mind, for the brain, and for the heart. Nutrition. Who can tell me what that is? Anybody want to take a guess? I'll mention it again. He said there's one thing that is the nutrition for the soul, for the brain, for the heart. It comforts it. It gives it comfort. Iman, no. Dhikr, no. All of those things, yes, in one way or another. But there's something. Ibadat, okay. Anybody else? Miswak, okay. Getting closer. So he said perfume, scent, itr. Okay? Why would I mention this on a health and fitness day? Because this has everything to do with our good health. Not to say that everybody here needs it. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying that the perfume, the itr, it was one of the most precious things to the Prophet ﷺ that he loved in this life, in this world. Of all the things in this world, he mentioned a handful of things that he loved the most, and one of those was perfume and scent. Itr or oud or whatever it is, something that smells great. He said that brings comfort, and there's a connection between good souls and good scents and good perfumes. And he said it gives nutrition for the heart, for the soul, for the body. And he said, "Man urida alayhi tibun fala yuradduhu." Whoever's given, offered some itr to put on, do not reject that. فَإِنَّهُ خَفِيفٌ الْمُحْمِلِ. Because it is light to wear, and it has a great smell, has a light smell. And so if somebody gives you something that is too strong, that you cannot take, that's a different case. But nowadays people are only, and no offense to anyone here, but a lot of times when I ask people when I share some scents, sometimes they're light, but they say, you know what, we can't take it. So I say that sometimes people are so used to the smell of their kitchen or the smell of other foul things that good things give them headaches. And there's a story actually about a person who used to work in the sewers. And this man, one day he went into the, itr shop somehow, or cologne shop. He went in and he was about to faint. And he came out and he actually collapsed outside of the store. And people were coming to revive him and try to put something that's, a scent or perfume to revive him. He's not getting up. And people are worried what's going on. One of his friends or his colleagues that works with him came with a dirty rag that has a very foul smell. And he put it right by his nose and the man stood up. He woke up right away. So let us become used to having good perfume and scents so that it has an effect on our health as well. Because it does have a direct effect. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, and this is one of the things that he loved most. Let us get used to that. And remember, when it comes to good smell from the body or from oral, right? Or when it comes to oral health, 70% of heart issues, according to a Scottish survey, 70% of heart issues come from bad oral health. Imagine. And the Prophet ﷺ was so particular in doing miswak before he went to sleep, when he woke up, before wudu, before salah, before so many things, that he would use it all of the time. So these are some of the points. When it comes to good health in Islam, we can have a 3-day conference for this. That is how many things that we can talk about. But inshallah, just to give a small introduction, inshallah, about the importance that the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba gave to good health, and how much more we need to push for this good health and move forward for it. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a true understanding. Inshallah, I'm going to give it off to our next speaker. Once again, Sister Samar is part of our youth group, alhamdulillah, and we're very proud to have her, inshallah. So please give her attention.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalat wassalam ala rasulillah. It's so wonderful to be with you guys this evening. I do want to give you guys a few disclaimers before we begin. I know I'm expected to tell you guys a lot of interesting nutrition facts and great nutrition advice, but I want to assure your hearts that I'm also not here to tell you stop eating this, stop eating that, cut this out, change your life like this, ditch the awesome biryani and tikka masala. No, that's not my job tonight. I want to give you guys a lot of hope, a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of things to value when it comes to your nutrition and your health and your fitness. There's so much out there that we fail to grasp when we're focused on the don'ts, don't do this and don't do that we fail to unlock so much power in appreciating and admiring and in reaching for goals, aspiring to things that motivate us that make us feel like we're living a fuller life. And that's what this is all about, right? Using our fitness, our nutrition to live that better life, inshallah, and to use our gifts of health, of our time, of our life, all for the sake of Allah as we seek His pleasure. There's one more thing I need to tell you guys. Before I became a nutritionist, believe it or not, I was a human being. It's true. Usually when I get introduced as a nutritionist, people are holding like a frappuccino or a donut or a cookie, and then they ask, oh, what do you do? And I tell them, and they all of a sudden hide it, like, don't look. You're not supposed to see what I was eating. Oh no, I'm so bad. Oh no, I'm so guilty. Don't see this. No, that's not what it's all about. That's not what nutrition is all about. That's a part of it, but it's not everything. So again, I'm human. I can relate to a lot of the struggles you guys go through. Sometimes I go through them myself. And inshallah, we're going to keep this very real and very practical tonight. One legal disclaimer. Anything you guys hear tonight from me, or probably from Brother Ruman as well, is not to be taken as medical advice. So please consult your doctor before you do anything. And bismillah, let's start. So it's clear that we have so many health problems around us. We have issues in mental health, depression, anxiety. Cancer is rampant. We have brain issues like dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, migraines. And it seems like these things are only getting worse and happening more and more around us or within us. Even in the workplace, when we look at what's going on at work and in our society, we're complaining of lack of energy. We don't get enough sleep. It's affecting how often we can show up at work, how many sick days we're taking, our productivity, what's going on at home, what's going on in our relationships. The effects are everywhere. And what's interesting is that researchers, whether they're in the fields of medicine, psychology, sociology, and nutrition, of course, they're trying to solve these problems. And interestingly, they found a lot of solutions to these problems, whether it's treatment, prevention, cure, you name it, within the field of nutrition, looking at nutrition science. It provides a lot of solutions, a lot of approaches, a lot of things that we can say, hey, if we focus on this, we can prevent XYZ big of a problem. And that's very, very valuable thing. But something I've noticed in my work as a nutritionist and a certified professional life coach is that the most important piece of the puzzle is not the information that comes out from this research. The most important piece of the puzzle is actually you. Because without you, you can't implement the knowledge that's coming out of the research. And if you're not implementing stuff, where's the success? What's the point of the research that they came out with? And so that's a very important piece of the puzzle to focus on. And it's in merging this knowledge of nutrition science and the intricate details of a person's life, like their likes and their dislikes, their relationships, their schedules, what's coming at them, what are they dealing with, their struggles, their failures, their triumphs. It's in merging all of this together that we can finally seek success in implementation for all this stuff. Because I know you've heard the saying, knowledge is power. But I'm here to disagree. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. And it's up to you to do something with it. So let's do that. Bismillah. Now, nutrition is not just about, I know this is a very common misconception, it's not just about looking a certain way. Like saying, oh, I want to be able to fit into that dress 1 month from now, you know? Or I want to be able to fit into these pants that, the waistline got a little bit too tight on me. It's not just about that. It's about time we think of it in a different way. Our nutrition, our health, our fitness, we should think of it as not just in the short term, but how do you want the last 10 years of your life to look like? How do you want to be living when you're in old age? Struggling with health issues that perhaps you could have prevented, that you maybe could have had something to do with? Or do you want a chance at changing the ending of that story? And maybe being like those wonderful elderly people you see on social media videos who are exercising well into old age, rollerblading, that sort of thing. That's aging goals, right? But I know you guys did come probably expecting to talk a little bit about weight loss. Because when we're talking about, Islam and nutrition and fitness, a very common question that comes up is, all right, let's talk about weight loss, because that's something that can benefit so many of us. So for starters, let's answer the question of what's more effective for weight loss, diet changes or exercise? I'm hearing both. Diet and some people are saying exercise. Okay, so the research shows that you'll get the most bang for your buck, the most benefit by doing changes in your diet for weight loss. Now, where does exercise come into play? Exercise still has a very important role. One of them is you build muscle, and when you build muscle, you're basically building the engine that burns fuel in your body. What's that fuel? Calories. And you can burn calories in a number of ways. Your basal metabolic rate, when you digest food, and also a third way, which is through physical activity. Now, why is that so awesome? Because you can't do a whole lot about the first two things, but you can do something about changing what goes down in physical activity. And that's where you have an opportunity to do interesting things, like implementing one of my favorite hacks for weight loss when it comes to physical activity. And that is working out in a time that's about in the range of like 4 to 5 hours after your last meal. And you do cardio exercises like walking, jogging, swimming, cycling, whatever, to get your heart rate up, right? Where you're breathing very fast. That's how you know you got a good cardio exercise. You should not be able to hold a great conversation with your friend. Is that right, Brother Ruman? If you're talking while you're doing high intensity exercise, you're not at the right point, yeah. So then what's going on there? For weight loss, what happens on a molecular level when you're doing that cardio? Once you've sustained that for like 20 to 30 minutes, you hit a point where your blood is saturated with oxygen. We call that maximum blood oxygen saturation. And then what goes on a molecular level? Well, if you zoom in into your blood at the level of the fat cell, you start to be able to get the fat out of the cell. Great, because we want to burn that fat for fuel, right? So it starts to come out of the cell. You can break it up, burn the fuel, and you get rid of the excess. The excess meaning you're not going to get that fat back into the cell. Once it's out, you can burn it and let it go. Now, why is that such a powerful thing? Why is that one of my favorite hacks? Because for the person who's trying to get the most bang for their buck, for the person who's trying to not have to do too much, for the person who's trying to get the bulk of their results from perhaps as little work as possible, this can be a helpful thing. Yes, we can make some changes in our diet, but for the part that is a little bit hard to keep going with and sustain, this is something we can explore, and this is something we can use. But that's just for like one example. There's so many approaches and strategies for weight loss, for building muscle, for sustaining muscle. These are all very important and worth looking into. But the most important thing of it all is to choose what works for you. Because what works for one person might not work for another person. What works for a group of people isn't going to work for another group of people. And that's fine. In fact, that's great. Embrace where you know you'll get your success from. And don't worry about if you don't match, what other people are doing. As long as it works for you, it's safe, it's effective, awesome. More power to you. Now, here's the next really big question. People say, okay, I lost the weight. Now, how do I maintain that? Let's talk about weight maintenance. How do we keep that off? It looks like the research is pointing to you need about an hour of exercise every day to keep it off, of like moderate to high intensity exercise. An hour every day to keep off the weight that you lost. Now, that's really interesting. Why could that be? Well, I have some good news and bad news for you. You guys want to hear the bad news? The bad news is that when it comes to fat cells, you can make new fat cells. You can gain weight, all right? But here's the bad news. Fat cells don't die. They just shrink. So when we lose weight, they're still there. If they die, they get replaced. And they even get replaced at sometimes like the same rate that they died at. So that's why it's so important to continue that exercise every day. But there's the good news. I promised you guys some good news, right? That daunting task of like, oh my goodness, an hour of exercise every day following weight loss just to maintain it. It seems like a lot, and it seems like it could be impossible for a lot of folks. And it is, and you better believe a lot of people will fail. And that's why you hear about weight regain is such a common issue. Not a whole lot of people succeed with it. But is it possible? Is it attainable? Have people done it? Yes, yes, and yes. So does that mean there's a chance for us as well? Absolutely. And it's that hope that I want you guys to hold on to. But the journey of implementing these nutrition goals, weight loss goals, whatever you want to call it, whatever you need to do, this journey can be a rocky road. It's not linear. There can be a whole lot of bumps along the way. Twists and turns, things you weren't expecting, some illness, something through you got a curveball thrown at you, you name it. On top of that, there are some pitfalls that we can fall into that make things sometimes a little harder before we even started, or as we've started and we're going and we encounter some issues. And I want to talk to you guys briefly about some of those pitfalls. Pitfall number 1 that we can all too easily fall into is not knowing yourself. And this is where a lot of the magic happens when you work with a coach, where they can help you discover elements about yourself that are so crucial on your road to success with these goals. So one of the most important parts to know about yourself is your mindset, starting with your mindset. What are the thoughts going on in your mind? Are your thoughts hindering you from getting closer to your goals? Or are your thoughts the hammer with which you smash those walls standing between you and your success? The choice is yours. And I don't know where everyone is at with their mindset over here, but what I do know is that your attitude matters. Your attitude determines your altitude. Now, how far will you go? Another interesting part about not knowing ourselves, when we start these things, is that we miss out on acknowledging our humanity. We make mistakes, we have shortcomings, things don't pan out always as we planned, and that's okay. And what's important is that we don't beat ourselves up about it too much, and we keep on going, We don't just throw our hands up and throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, I give up completely, right? We keep on going. And it brings to mind an interesting advice from the Prophet ﷺ that he gave to a companion, Mu'adh, may Allah be pleased with him. He gave him a set of advices, and one of them was to follow up a bad deed with a good deed. And that good deed will erase the bad deed, right? And what's the point there? The point is to keep going. Yeah, you slip up, but get back up. Get on your feet and keep going. Try again. Look for that resilience. Look for that hope. Look for every reason to shut down the possibility of despair, throwing your hands up, giving up. Failure in that regard is not an option. Now, I don't know if you guys are thinking like me, but when I connected these two things together, I automatically started to think, okay, so is someone going to ask, can I have a few donuts? And then I follow it up with a salad, and then will the salad undo the donuts that I ate? I wish it would work that way. Perhaps. Maybe that's a very complicated answer that we can do in another session, but just something to think about that could be interesting. Another really important part about knowing ourselves, guys, is to understand our tendencies and how we respond to expectations. Because these goals that we set, they either came from within, an internal expectation, something that we said, hey, I want to do this. I decided this, therefore it's going to happen. And here's why, right? Or they came from somebody else, from the outside, your boss or your spouse, or your kids are making you try to do something new. An external expectation. How we respond to those things means a lot. And we can harness a lot of strategies just by focusing on our strengths and weaknesses with respect to how we respond to these tendencies. And I wanted to go into these 4 possible tendencies that we can have, but we don't have time just yet. If we do at the end, I will dive deep into those, inshallah. Pitfall number 2 that so many of us can easily fall into is not having a plan. And the plan doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to get overwhelmed. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple. In fact, simplifying could be the plan in and of itself. Get rid of the right things, add the right things, move this and that around can be sufficient for a lot of people. And yes, it doesn't have to be grand, but what it should have is consistency. Consistency. You know the saying, good things come to those who wait? Well, I'm going to make up another one. Good things come to those who are consistent. And what did our beloved Prophet ﷺ say about consistency? He said, أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمَهَا وَإِنْ قَالَ. that the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the consistent ones, even if they're small. The consistent ones, even if they're small. Because if you do a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit, but you do it like every day, or even if you do it once a week, but you do that long term, you think you're going to make a dent in what you're seeking? Absolutely. And that's the power of consistency. So seek that. And there's benefits to having a plan. One of them is you can obviously troubleshoot. When you start with a plan, you can take a look at something in a very objective way and say, hey, what worked and what didn't? What can we tweak and what can we adjust and what can we just leave off and not feel guilty about? That this didn't work for us, and let's embrace something different here. And that's a beautiful thing as well. A plan also gives us peace of mind. So we can know that we have our eyes on the prize, our hands are busy with the task at hand, and our heart is trusting in Allah and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hoping that all will work out and the success will come from Him. Because all of the success in all of the stuff that we're trying to do with respect to our health and our fitness and our wellness is only coming from Allah. It's only coming from Allah. So it only makes sense that our hearts are attached to Him in some way while we're doing it. And even when we're planning, we're doing our part and we're trusting Allah for the rest. Even in our planning, we're able to do that. All right, pitfall number 3 that we can easily fall into on our journey to health and wellness is not embracing the power of being decisive. What do I mean by that? There's so much success that you can unlock simply by asking the right questions that lead you towards making decisions, important decisions, because questions are so powerful. There's a quote, I don't know who said it, but I'd love to find out. The same level of thinking that created the problem won't solve the problem. The same level of thinking that created the problem won't solve the problem. Something has to change. And oftentimes the decision making that we need to engage in the most, the stuff that calls for our attention the most urgently, has to do with the questions, what's holding me back? Or who's holding me back? What can give me measurable progress? How can I understand my current situation or the situation I'm about to move into so that I can make the best of it and so that I can be on my best, on my toes, like on my best guard, so that I can try to prevent problems? How can I be strategic in that regard? And there are a number of decision-making tools and time management tools that we could take advantage of to give us clarity in this regard. Give us clarity. And with clarity comes the ability to make great decisions. Decisions that lead you to great results, inshallah. Some of my favorites are good old SWOT analysis, which is an acronym for, it's SWOT, S-W-O-T, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that's a really fun one because it makes you focus on what's inside of you, what's outside of you, and how do you mitigate everything. So strengths and weaknesses, you look at them, what's going on within you, that is strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities and threats, you look at them as outside things. What opportunities and threats do you have around you that you need to consider and work with and be strategic about? And how do you merge the two? What kind of ideas and goals come out of that stuff together? There's more. There's block scheduling. There's automating processes. There's an approach or a strategy called the Pareto principle, or also known as the 80-20 rule, which is basically saying that 80% of your effects or your consequences, 80% of your results are coming from about 20% of the effort that you're putting in, which is nice, for someone who doesn't want to have to do everything to get to the right nutrition and health and wellness and fitness goals. Hey, if you can focus on 20% and you can get about 80% of the results, that sounds like a smart deal to me, wouldn't you say? At least for someone who knows they don't want to do everything, or that's not going to happen, or that's just not sustainable. I can't keep that up. That's not going to happen for the long haul. So this can work in your favor. And then there's my super duper favorite, the Eisenhower box, which makes you put things in the perspective of, is it urgent? Is it not urgent? Is it important? Is it not important? And if you can imagine a box with 4 squares, over here you'd have something is both urgent and important. Next over, you have something is urgent, but it's not important. So wait, let's back up. What do you do with those things? So if something is both urgent and important, what should you do? You do it, right? You do it. If something is urgent but it's not important, you say, okay, let me schedule it for a later time. It doesn't have to happen right now. Or I'm sorry, it doesn't have to, what did I say? I lost my train of thought, guys. What did I say? Urgent and important? Somebody remind me, what did I just say? I said urgent and not important. Okay, urgent and not important would mean that you try to see if someone else can do it for you, if you can outsource it, if you don't have to be the one to do it. And if something is urgent, if something is not urgent, but it's still important to do, no, I'm sorry, that's the one that you outsource. Somebody knows the Eisenhower box better than me, tell me. I'm totally blanking out. Right. So you delegate where possible, and perhaps the best one of them all is if something is both not urgent and not important. You see, hey, can I get rid of it? Do I really have to do it in the first place? Can I get out of it completely? And you can free up a lot of your time in that way. My apologies, guys, for blanking out on that. A few more things to keep in mind about the decisions that we make or that we're not making, but that can unlock a whole lot of our success, is with respect to our boundaries. Boundaries with respect to people, to things, to activities that we engage in. And boundaries are not just about keeping things out, keeping people out, but it's also about who do you want to bring into your life? What do you want to bring into your life? You know, if a boundary is like a fence, you have to think about what's allowed in and what's allowed out, right? With respect to people, they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. What does that mean to you? Who are those people? What do you want out of those relationships? Are they role models? Are they mentors? Are they teachers to you? Can you benefit them in some way that keeps you in check, that keeps you growing, that keeps you spiritually pure and good, inshallah? But most of all, when it comes to boundaries, we have to remember that when we say yes to something, we're automatically saying no to something else. And when we say no to something, like an event, like people, like a task, we're saying yes to the things that matter to us. And if we can look at boundaries as a transaction of that sort of a thing, of benefiting ourselves, of benefiting others, but in a way where you know exactly what you're saying yes and no to, there's a lot of potential success to unlock behind that. You get crystal clear. The results that you want become very attainable, as opposed to being like a ship that sails in the sea without a map. You might go in a zigzag, you might go backwards, but going from point A to point B, that's a tough one. But these things help you do it. So I hope that was beneficial, and I will conclude with that and pass it on to Brother Ruman.
Jazakallah khair to Sister Samar. That was wonderful, mashallah. And now Brother Ruman is going to do his part, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm actually craving nihari right now, so some donuts afterwards, but let's just get started. Bismillah. So a little bit of background on why I do what I do. My dad passed away of a heart attack at 42 years old. Heart failure. So, and I use his life as an example, you know, and I want to, with the permission of Obair, Sheikh Obair, I wanted to, you know, call out some of those things, you know. He led kind of a stagnant lifestyle. He worked a lot, stressed a lot, and also diet and all of that. So, you know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously, you know, took him at an early age. And by the way, exercise and dieting doesn't necessarily make you live longer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take you at any time. But you have to do your part. You have to tie your camel. We all know that hadith. So, and on the other spectrum, my mom, for example, she's a marathon runner. She's in her late 50s and has ran about 5-6 marathons already in every city. And her physical health compared to her counterparts is like night and day. So I take those two examples, and it's the reason why I do what I do. And she put me in sports at a very early age, and it was very beneficial to my health and how I feel about it, and how I look at health in the greater perspective. And obviously, doing some research on Prophet ﷺ and his companions, and how their bodies were, and their strength, and it's the reason why our religion has prevailed today. It's because not only was it divine, these men they were men, they had physical strength, they worked, everything was labor intensive. They were fighting battles with 20, 30 pounds of armor on them. They were eating less and doing more, and just had full taqwa in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why I do what I do. So I can sit here, I can tell you thousands of benefits for exercise, but I'm gonna name a few that are pretty important to me, and some of the things that I see in my family and my counterparts. And one of them is just a healthier heart. And actually, before I get started on the healthier heart part, just want to let you guys know, in the books that I've studied, they say exercise and diet is 70%, and exercise is 30%. And I only know about the 30%. So, and a little bit of the diet as well. But so, one of the benefits, a healthier heart. It's the life of the body, and if it's sound, the whole body is sound. And also with 150 minutes, this is just in the books that I've read and some of the research that I've done, they say about 150 minutes of physical activity a week can reduce the risk of coronary heart disease by 35%. And the risk of the plaque buildup in the blood vessels that feed the heart. So that's like the main thing. And I know some of you guys, when you guys go to doctors, the main thing they say is, just eat well and, just exercise, it'll be all good. But we need to take this very seriously. A lot of us are parents, grandparents, and soon, and young as well. So we need to try to stick around and be beneficial to the ummah, inshallah. Another benefit is reducing the risk of osteoporosis. It's very rampant. A lot of people can't stand up for prayer anymore as much, can't sit down or even stand for long periods of time. And what exercise does, high intensity resistance and weight training, what that does is help with the bone density. So it helps with osteoporosis and prolongs that. Another benefit is it prevents cognitive decline. Okay? The hippocampus in your brain, the one that's in charge of all the memory and all the good things, it helps prevent the degeneration of that by the chemicals produced when you're exercising. So if you want to have a good memory, retain more information, be more lively, see things more clear, exercise. Also, developing new brain cells. Helps, obviously, knowledge and all of that, and just retaining information. Exercise will help you with that. Second, or last, energy levels. Now, the more muscles trained means the mitochondria that are produced. Mitochondria is like the powerhouse of the cell. And when you exercise, that produces more energy. So that's what exercise is going to help you with. It's going to help you with all of that. So it just helps you see clearer, feel more youthful, have more energy, being able to stand. All this helps you. It all comes back to our deen, like getting up for Fajr. A fit person has an easier time getting up for Fajr than a non-fit person. Obviously, I know a lot of fit people that don't get up for Fajr as well, but being fit helps you get up for Fajr earlier, and you're in any form of ibadah that you do, it helps you. Helps you with your marital relations as well. We don't want to delve too much into that, but it helps you in that regard a lot. And skin health. People who exercise have a glow that people who don't exercise don't. They look younger, they sweat more, a lot of the toxins are leaving the body through sweat. So the skin feels more clear, you have a glow about you, not only besides the nur on your face, it helps you with that glow. And those are some of the things that are very important to me. Being as youthful as you can be, like I said, Prophet ﷺ actually, they fought half of their battles after the age of 50. That to me is just, subhanAllah, it's crazy how people after the age of 50 can do that when I don't know any people after the age of 50 that can even run a mile. So these are some of the things that are very important to me, and I wanted to make it very short. My presentation was going to be very short, and some of the stats that I've read, in the United States alone, over 100 million people are either pre-diabetic or have diabetes. Why is this? Because of the sedentary lifestyle we lead, and all the sugar and all that we eat. And Sheikh Obair talked about overeating and all that, so this is what leads to that. So over 100 million people have that, which can lead to gangrene, which people get their body parts amputated because of this, have to have insulin all the time. It's a hindrance in life. And also, amongst the Muslim Ummah, the leading cause of death is heart failure, especially amongst Pakistanis and Indians. And also, one of the statistics that I read was, out of the top 10 most obese countries, 8 of them are Muslim countries. It was very sad for me to read that, and inshallah we can do something to improve that. And that's pretty much my presentation. And one of the things also, I worked with Sheikh Obair here, if he can tell you some of the things that he... Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to cut in between, and I know he has a lot more to add. We're going to get back to him in a minute. I just wanted to say one thing, that personally I had an experience in 2014 where I had a doctor who came, actually this was the first time I actually went to a doctor after years of madrasa, and I came to him and he said, look, your cholesterol level, the numbers are over 400 and you're going to die. So when he said that, I didn't like that, so I switched to doctor, right? But the good thing was, that really hit me. I didn't want to ignore what he said because I didn't want to die, obviously, and nobody does here right away. We're all going to die, but you don't want to die early, especially because of eating. That would be an embarrassment. And especially for someone who's studying deen, and that would just be wrong. So anyways, that was an eye-opener for me, and I decided to change. He gave me statins and cholesterol medicine, which I took for about 5 or 6 days. I hated it. I don't even take Tylenol for headaches, although you're supposed to take medicine when you get sick, but I just don't like medicine. I like natural medicine. I like all of those things, but I did not like that medicine for 5 or 6 days. It was the worst thing I ever had, and I decided at that point in my life I'm going to change, because it's not right that somebody who is not even 30 years old have heart issues or cholesterol issues, and I don't like this excuse that it's just in my family. I mean, no offense to anybody. When somebody wants to justify health issues, they say it runs in the family. I say the family doesn't run. And those things, yes, there are a few cases where, hereditary and things like happen, and there's certain issues, but for the majority, it's all our hands doing. It's all what we want to do. It's our option. So what did I do? I started going to the gym. I started making sure I get at least 4 or 5 days of physical, cardio, sweat, half an hour to 45 minutes, and I switched what I was eating. I was eating everything and anything I liked. I stopped that. I stopped eating basmati rice, which I love. Had to stop eating that for breakfast. I had oatmeal. This is for a period of 4 to 6 months. I stopped eating rice and bread. I started having more protein. I started having oatmeal in the mornings. I started having more dry foods and a lot more water, and I cut the sugar completely, and within 4 to 6 months, I kid you not, I went to the doctor, the other doctor, the new one, and I told him, am I going to live? How much is my cholesterol levels? He says it's around 230. from over 400 to 230, which is still a bit high, but it's much better than 400. And within 4 to 6 months, and I didn't take any medicine. I did not stack up on medicine. All I did was exercise and food habits, and that's the main thing today, is that we need to change our lives. For those of us who like medicine, there's certain people who love medicine. They collect medicine, no offense. They like medicine, they depend on medicine, but the overall effects of medicine is horrible. It's not good in the long run. And so exercise is the main thing. Now this is where Brother Ruman came into my, alhamdulillah, in this community he came in, mashallah, he was saying this is what he wants to do. He wants to train. And so I thought, you know what, I have a lot more to do. So I started with him, and we decided that after 4 or 6 months, inshallah, we're going to have a program, and we're going to introduce him, and as well as Sister Samar and her coaching. And I want to promote both of them tonight as we conclude. But I wanted Brother Ruman to say maybe a few more things about, I don't like talking about myself, but I'm going to just tell you what happened. Within the last 4 to 5 months, it was an actuality of 3 months of exercise with Brother Ruman, training me 1 hour, about 4 or 5 days every day. So I started with 206 pounds, okay? Now this is 3 months of actual exercise. We started about 5, 6 months ago, but the actual time I put in was probably 3 months or less. I started with 206 pounds. I checked my weight today is 189 pounds. I started with 29.6 BMI? And at the gym, they said, you're past obese. He said that you're over obese level. And I said, that's a shame on me. That's crazy. I thought I was, subhanAllah. So 29 point half, and now recently I checked, it's down to 25. The number is 25. For 3-4 months, that's great. So I wasn't able to do a single pull-up. And that's one of the things he specializes in, is the calisthenics, that if you can't pull your own body weight, it doesn't matter how much you're lifting your weights, it's nothing. You can't pull your own body weight, you can't do anything. So I started with not even being able to do 2 or 3 pull-ups. Now I can do about 50 pull-ups and 50 dips. Dips is, that's the only machine you need, really. The dips and the pull-ups. 50 each. I couldn't do many push-ups, now I can do 60 push-ups. So I'm trying to improve more and more, right? And that is the idea, is that every one of us can do some sort of exercise, and that we can all benefit from that, and it can take us off of medicine. Exercise and diet will take us off of medicine and make us feel better, and it's actually, keeping fit is an act of worship. It is an act of worship. It is not just, right, as long as the niyyah is correct, it is an act of worship, and all of these things have to do with our deen, and these people are here today to help us, and we need to take their services, inshallah. So that's one of the main things I wanted to, before we close for question and answer. Sister Samar is especially life coaching in, nutrition coaching, I believe, and she can tell you a little bit more about it, but this is very, very necessary for especially those who don't have any plans and want to change their lifestyle. This is of most importance. And Brother Ruman is training, physical training, and I would train with him rather than any of the trainers in any of the gyms, because they charge like an insane amount, whereas he's willing to charge maybe not even a third of that, and he can help you. And I'm telling you, exercising by yourself and exercising with someone who's pushing you and training you is like 10 exercises, 10 of those in one shot. And I would pay whatever it would take, but it's for your health. People are paying for clothes, for food, for their cars, for their houses, but how many people are investing in their health? And that's what I wanted to conclude with before I answer. One of the greatest NBA players, who's the best player right now, everybody thinks? LeBron James. And the view might change because he's getting older, but even at this age, he's at the peak. And this is the one NBA player that has spent over $1 million just on his health care. Over $1 million a year just on his body. That's what you call smart, and that's what the results are. So nobody's asking you here to spend $1 million, but let's spend a little bit of money on our health, which will be a form of sadaqah, and it will be an act of worship in the eyes of Allah if we have a good intention. So before I give it off for question and answer, just want to ask if you guys have anything else you want to.
Do you guys want to hear a really cool story about cholesterol, since Sheikh Obair mentioned it? So I had a professor in college, And he did his research in the field of biochemistry on orangutans, I believe, or chimpanzees. Sorry, chimpanzees. He did his research on chimpanzees with respect to methods to lower cholesterol. And he found there's a really effective way to lower cholesterol through the diet by having people, or having the chimpanzees actually, eat with their meals these compounds, these chemical compounds called plant sterols and plant stanols. How many of you guys have heard of those? Just curious. Okay, and you probably see it in even like mainstream food products these days. Like now you'll find it in like butter and margarine and things like that on the shelves, right? Okay, so what happened with that? It would help lower their cholesterol. And how did that happen? How did that work out? Well, what would happen is when you eat your meal, if there's fat in your meal, and most of the time meals do have fats, oils, butters, animal fat, you name it, how does your body digest that? Well, in your intestines, the gallbladder is going to release something called bile, so it can emulsify that fat. And in bile, which came from your liver, in bile is cholesterol. How did your liver make the bile? It actually pulled from different things in your body. One of them is cholesterol in your body, put it into this thing called bile, and then it would put it into your intestine every time you eat something with fat in it. So what would happen? The plant sterols and the plant stanols, when it would interact with the cholesterol, it would bind it, right? So now the cholesterol is bound to these plant sterols and plant stanols, and when a person has to go, number 2, to go do a bowel movement, it gets released and gets flushed down the toilet. So then what happens the next time your body needs to put bile into digesting fats? It pulls from your cholesterol stores in your body again, and it makes that bile, and it puts the bile into your intestines. And then if you have plant sterols and plant stanols, those bind to the cholesterol and you excrete it out. And then it happens again and again, and your body basically keeps on pulling from the cholesterol that's already in your body, because your body needs cholesterol to live. It's an important part, right? It keeps pulling from those stores, getting bound, and then going into the toilet. So what happens over time is you start to reduce the levels of cholesterol. So this professor had a really fun time. He had high cholesterol problems. His doctor told him you need to change what you eat and you need to exercise and all that stuff. And he was like, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do some tricks. So he didn't tell her that, but he was thinking in his head. So he went home, he did this stuff, these interventions on himself that he was doing research on. He comes back to the doctor's office and tells the doctor, how's my cholesterol looking now? And she looks at the results and she's like, you've been exercising, haven't you? And he was so proud of himself. He goes, nope, I was not exercising. What was going on? He said, I've been eating avocados. Avocados have a lot of plant sterols and plant stanols in them, as do broccoli and other sources of food. But that was just something really interesting where, he took his knowledge that he got from his own research, he implemented it in his life, and he got a result that was very important to him. At the end of the day, he really couldn't keep up, I think, with eating all those avocados and just using dietary interventions, and he settled for the drugs, which is okay too. Look, if we have a hard time using lifestyle changes and dietary changes to get health results that are very important to us, it's okay to go for the drugs. It's okay to go for pharmaceutical drugs, not recreational ones, please, to get the help that you need. Sometimes you need the action to be quick, and that's the beauty of pharmaceutical drugs. But where you can implement dietary and lifestyle changes, do so. Why? Because you can avoid the costs of medication, you can avoid side effects, you can also benefit from all of the other chemicals, the phytochemicals that do very important special things that in your body that come from food that really research hasn't figured it all out. Like, we don't know all of the amazing chemicals in food outside of vitamins and minerals and that sort of thing, and the extent of how they benefit us, but we know that there's a lot of them in our natural foods.
Jazakallah khair. We have one last comment from Brother Ruman. I know it's time already. What is that? Yeah, we're just going to delay Salah 5-10 minutes. I apologize, but it's a Friday night, and we're just going to complete with one last comment, and if anybody has questions, we can have.
So just as far as exercise goes, just want to let you guys know just a couple of tidbits. Whether you train with me or not, I urge you all, please, just to start doing little things, whether it's doing some push-ups after salah or anything, any type of physical activity, walking after salah or anything. Try to take 10,000 steps in a day. It's good for your heart. And also, there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound. So if you guys can just cut the calories a little bit every day, like say 1,700 calories in a day, for example, it will help you drastically. It means you're eating less. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you can't eat whatever, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, but just cut the calorie intake. You will drop some weight. And try to fast if you can. And drink a lot of water, sleep well. That's what I would urge you guys to do. And just like the world is your masjid, the world is your gym. You can literally exercise whenever, wherever. It's one of the few things in life that you can see instant results. Literally. Right after you exercise a little bit, you just feel better. You have all these endorphins and all the chemicals in your brain that gives you a natural high. So please, I urge you all to do that, not only for the sake of yourselves, but for the sake of Allah, and for the sake of your kids and your grandkids and their kids. So please do that. Jazakallah khair.
I'd like to thank everybody here for joining us. Before we have the adhan, does anyone have any questions? Yes, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Who is the question for? Okay. Myself? For yoga? A religious standpoint, anything that does it confirms with the religion, there's no issue with that. Yoga is fine. Yoga is just like a meditation. It's like a dhikr, and you're stretching and you're doing your presence of mind. All of this is fine. It's almost like muraqabah. Our righteous people have been doing that for many, many years, hundreds of years. You want to say something?
Phenomenal exercise. Great. Please do it.
Yes, brother. MashaAllah. Yeah. Yeah. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. Just wanted to mention for those who couldn't hear, brother's a neurologist. He's saying that health and exercise, diet and exercise can delay or even prevent dementia, and the effects start happening 30, 40 years. And I can relate to that because my mother, way before she even had dementia, we knew that something is wrong. The doctor said there is something, but we can't tell. And she was someone who suffered from high blood pressure and cholesterol and all those things. They all have an effect. If anybody else has any question, if we can just ask the brother if there's any question rather than comments so that we can, because of the time. Yes.
You want it? Yeah.
All right, so he's asking, when it comes to our diet and exercise, does it really work if we invest in, you mentioned a couple of things like the keto diet and then two other things I didn't catch. What was that? So this is like a food delivery package type thing? Well, it depends. It's really highly person specific. You know, when we ask the question, what's the ideal diet? There is no answer to that. Actually, the answer to that is another question. For who, right? For the person. So I want to know what does this person already eat like? What is their lifestyle like that allows them to prepare their own foods, to do meal prep? What else do they have going on? Like, do they have any medical conditions or other constraints that we have to be aware of? It really depends. I don't know about the first two things that you mentioned in terms of meal service plans, but I'll comment on the keto diet. There are a lot of benefits for some people. They do observe benefits for treating things like epilepsy, even in the research. But there is also a little bit of research coming out about potential downfalls of it and potential harms. So there's still research to be done on it before like a definitive recommendation or not from my end can be given. But I will say for women, there is one concern that for sure comes with keto that I do like to warn the women about. See, when men get on keto diet is basically cutting out carbs to a very minimal amount, and you're basically eating vegetables and fats and meats instead, getting your calories from there. And it shifts your body's metabolism from relying on predominantly carbohydrate to those other sources. Sure, I'll wrap up. But for women, what happens? So for men, when they get on it, once they want to start eating normally again, like get back to carbs, get off of keto, they can do it. Their metabolism lets them go that way and then switch back off like nothing happened. They don't have like a massive weight regain issue. Women, on the other hand, we don't work like that. Our metabolism tends to adapt once we've been on keto for some time or other caloric restrictive diets. And then when we want to get off of it and start eating normally again or bring those foods back into our lives, we run into a problem of weight regain. There's a question from a sister in the back. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me if I heard your question right. How do we deal with stress as we age or eating under stress? Eating under stress. So when it comes to the subjects that have to do with emotions and thought patterns, it's really important to ask ourselves, or for the person to be asked, what's going on here, to get a better idea. When do these things come up? Tell me about the situations, the triggers. What's going on before, after? What does it mean to you? What can happen if we try to replace it with this and that? What kind of other thoughts and emotions bubble up for you there? Does that address it? Does it not? And then sometimes we can see that that's the issue in and of itself. It can be addressed, solved, done, move on to the next. And sometimes it's actually just a surface level manifestation of a deeper issue within. And that's why the coaching process is so helpful, is because we can ask questions to find out, is the problem really just as you described, or is there more going on behind the scenes? And more often than not, there are other things going on that are much deeper than just what we see on the outside. And when we come to a professional, we say, hey, help me with this. There's a whole lot more. So it is something worth exploring deeply, whether it's with a therapist, with a coach, with a nutrition coach like myself, a life coach. All of these things, all these professionals can offer you a great deal of help.
Jazakumullah khair. The thing is, the time has come to an end. We'd like to thank everybody. What's that? Okay, just 1 second. We want to make an announcement first. Inshallah, we'll go on another 5 minutes. And if there's any questions, we can continue after. I'm the one who least likes to end the programs, but I think unless everybody is okay with waiting another 10, 15 minutes. If we're okay, if we can get a vote. If not, then here's the announcement. There's going to be a talk tomorrow after Maghrib. Sheikh Muhammad Azhar Iqbal is coming from overseas, and he'll be giving the talk after Maghrib, and requesting everyone to come for that. Inshallah, there'll be dinner as well. Now, we'd like to thank the speakers, first and foremost. The second thing is they both have some sign-up sheets. Once again, Sister Samar is the fitness coach, and Brother Ruman is the, the other way around. He is the fitness and training coach, and Sister Samar is the life nutrition coach. So both of them have a service to offer, and I would encourage you everyone to, inshallah, sign up and see how you can benefit from them, inshallah. I'd like to thank everyone for staying this long. We'll have the adhan in 2 minutes, and inshallah we will have salah at around 10, and right after salah we'll have dinner. Jazakallah for your patience. Thank you for staying by. Yes, you can.
So just to give you guys my email address, if you want to contact me for any of my services, it's my company, birdsnestwellness@gmail.com. Again, that's birdsnestwellness@gmail.com. And if you want to get more updates on any events or services that I'm offering, there's an email list sign-up sheet on the sister side and an email list sign-up sheet right here for the brothers if you'd like to leave your first name and your email. And I'd love to hear from you guys if you have questions or want to follow up on anything. Jazakumullah khairan.